The other thing you have to remember is that people in a family, each person has their duties. And if you're a mother, you're a father, you're a son, daughter, there are various duties that you have to perform in the family. You have to do your duty maybe to go out earn money, you have to do your duty to keep the place clean, you have to do your duty to support each other in different ways. And really it's when you understand what your duty is and you use your mindfulness, your wisdom to do your duty in the best way, then your family is going to be smooth, because the more people are doing their duty and focusing on that, then the less they'll argue about different things. If they know, this is my duty, my role in the family, I'll do this, then this will help to sort out the problems between people. And he said the main thing is to learn how to adjust to living in a family. A peaceful family is one where the members of the family have adjusted to the fact that they are living together as a family unit. They know this is the father, the mother, the children. Each member knows that. They're mindful of that, they understood that, so they adjust to that fact that they're in a relationship with other people in a house, living together regularly. When people don't adjust, then they're suffering, because there's always kind of friction and wanting to do things our own way, not listening to others and so on. So the more we can adjust, then the more our family will be peaceful. When we live in a family, then there's going to be at least two people, say a husband and wife, or a parent and a child, and usually more than that. So a family is a social unit. Any kind of social unit, social group, there's going to be relationships between people. There's going to be the question of how we relate to each other, and that means there has to be a certain amount of giving up of one's preferences, because if you have many people living together, not everybody is going to get what they want at the same time. They might have different desires, different agendas, what they want, but it's impossible to please everyone and give everyone what they want at the same time. So naturally there'll be some times where you get what you want and sometimes where you don't get what you want, and you might have to compromise with the other members of the household. This is just nature. For one who contemplates with wisdom, they'll understand this is nature, this is the way of life. In many areas it's like this, just as in a family you have, sometimes you get what you want, sometimes you don't get what you want. In life, say in another part of life, you could say there's the dark and there's the light. We have the light of day and then we have the dark of night, and that's just the way it is. We can't do much about that, but we can adjust to it. As someone who's well adjusted, they know darkness at night is usually a time where we rest, we sleep, we rest our bodies, our limbs, and we can make use of that. In the light, we make use of that, we can see, we can do things, so that's usually the time where we go to work and do different things. For someone who understands this, and they make use of that, and they understand, now it's light, now it's dark, and they know this is the way it is, the way of the world. Similarly, when we live in a social group like a family, we know sometimes it's time to I get my way, sometimes we know I can't get my way with this one, that other people will get their way. If you know that, then you can live together and adjust to the situation and live peacefully. When we talk about living in society, there's one social group that is perhaps the most difficult or the most awesome group, you could say, to live in, and that is actually a group of monks, Buddhist monks, because Buddhist monks, when they come together to live in a monastery, they've come from many different backgrounds, different cultures, countries, different parents, different languages, many different things in their background. They're not related by blood, they're not family members, so when they come together, that you would expect that would be even more of a formidable task to live together in harmony than, say, a family. The way the monks learn to live together is that they first identify what the problems are of living in a group, how to live in harmony. They see that really the problem is we have what we call mental defilements, kilesas. These things, they come up in our own minds, our own hearts, and when they do come up, they're ugly, they're not pleasant to look at. And one who is practicing the Dhamma, say living in a monastery, one starts to see that, the ugliness and the unpleasant side of these kilesas. So then when they do come up, they start to see, oh, this is not something good, they're out of place. When we talk about kilesas, we're talking about what we call akusala dhamma, meaning unwholesome dhammas, which come up in the minds of individuals. And they might be prompted by different things. Say, a good example is, say, somebody criticizes you, and they're criticizing you without much meaning. It just they're just doing it out of, for whatever their reasons are, but there's no real meaning or value to their words. So they criticize one. If one doesn't know how to contemplate or observe one's own mind, then it will naturally give rise to some anger. This anger is coming from our own attachment to our sense of self, our own attachment to our pride, our views, our conceit, and that will lead on to an angry reaction when they criticize. But when you're living in a monastery where people have a common goal, they have a goal that they want to find a way to be peaceful and happy in their minds, their hearts, then even in a case where somebody is receiving criticism, and maybe unjustified criticism, if they react with anger, the problem they can see is not so much the criticism, it's the anger, their angry reaction, their own attachment to their sense of self, their ego, their views and opinions, which will come up and be prompted, and that will seem out of place, ugly and inappropriate in a peaceful community like a monastery. So this is how, say, monks learn how to live together in harmony, is that they learn to see this happening by turning their attention to observe their own minds, their own thoughts, thinking, their speech, their actions, and to see, if it's based on kilesa or views and opinions, attachment to a sense of self, what will always come up is there's a sense of separation between oneself and other people. One will see oneself as different from others. And when there's that sense of separation and difference, there'll always be a chance for conflict, because there'll be a self-interest or selfishness will arise. I want this, I like this, and that might be different from you or the other people, and then with this separation you get more conflict, more disharmony. So in a monastery people start observing that, and they can see that's not the way to peace, that's not the way to harmony, either internally in one's own mind or in the group as a whole. And so we have a very clear guidelines of how to practice, and we have a mutual goal, is that we all want to be peaceful. So we follow the way of practice where we let go of our attachments, our defilements, and by that we can be peaceful internally and in the group as a whole. And so this is a very good model for the whole of society, because obviously if it can apply in a group of monks living together who aren't related by blood, they've come from different places, then surely even more so it can apply in a family who are related and are closely bonded literally through blood. They should surely be able to apply these same guidelines and learn to live together peacefully and in harmony. So we need to contemplate to understand that in the world there are these different situations and different extremes that come our way, that just as there's darkness there's light, just as there's praise there's blame, but these are external conditions of the world, and what we have to do is learn to practice to not let them cause any internal conflict or struggle. As long as we have a strong sense of self, a conceit or an ego, then when we meet with these external extremes, then it will bring up a sense of self, and this will lead us to have internal suffering, conflict, and then that leads us to have arguments and problems with other people, because we're always being challenged like this. But the way of the Buddhist teachings is to learn how to not follow that, not follow the sense of self, the conceit, the views and opinions that might arise with different conditions, different situations, not to follow it. Learn how to put it down, let it go. And if you can do that internally, then you'll be able to live with other people peacefully. You won't be caught into always arguing with others, competing with others, struggling with others, because if you've managed to pacify yourself or you've managed to conquer yourself, then there'll be no problems with other people. So the Buddha's way is always to find the peaceful solution, and that means we have to learn how to train our minds, our hearts and minds on the inside. And to do that well, we have to learn to see clearly our own hearts from moment to moment, day to day. If you can't see your own mind, your own heart, then it's difficult to do much with it, to train it or improve it. It's a bit like water. If you have a pond of water and it's covered with algae or moss, then you can't see anything inside that water. You won't know what's on the bottom, what's inside the water. But if you clear away all the moss, the algae from the surface of the water, then you can see everything in that water. And our minds are a bit like that. If we never train them, never learn to make them peaceful, we won't see what's there clearly. It's like they'll be covered over with moss the whole time. And that's why we end up suffering and having problems with other people in our families and in our world. So we have to learn how to make our mind peaceful, and then we'll be able to see everything, every thought, every movement of the mind, every view or opinion, every sense of self that comes up. We'll be able to see that clearly, and we'll be able to see the harm of these things when we attach to them. Just as like a fire is harmful because it's hot and it burns things up, it's dangerous. When we know that, we know a fire is hot and dangerous, then we won't put any more fuel on the fire. So the Buddha said, if you can see your own attachment to your sense of self, your conceit, your pride, your views and opinions, when you can see that's hot and it's dangerous for you, you won't want to put any more fuel on it. You won't want to feed it up anymore or add to it. So if you have that clarity, then you'll be able to let go of these things, let go of your views and opinions. Then you won't be adding more fuel to the fire, you won't have so much suffering, and certainly in your family you won't be so disturbed, have so many problems. And the Buddha gave very good guidelines for living in households and families, as practicing satya, like truthfulness, to be truthful between people, the family members, to have chaka, which means like a sense of giving and renunciation. We have to learn how to give up and help each other in the family. And perhaps most important of all is khanti, which means to have patience and endurance. And khanti doesn't just mean having patience and endurance with other people, but also with yourself. Because you might have different moods, different thoughts come up, and you have to learn how to be patient, not to follow every mood, every thought, every impulse that comes up in your mind, because some of them are going to cause you trouble. They're harmful, and if you act on them, they'll bring you suffering. So sometimes we have to be very patient, especially when it's relating to other people and they want one thing, we want another. We might have a mood come up, but we have to be patient and just not follow that mood and let it come up and go away by itself.
This is really a stupid question. Would, say for instance, would attempting suicide solve the problems?
Suicide?
Yes.
So if we have suffering in our lives or with our families, and then we think the way to end it or get beyond it is through committing suicide, we say this is wrong view, micchaditthi, and it comes from a lack of understanding of the proper way to have a healthy life. When we talk about having a healthy life, there's two kinds of health or good health. There's the health of the body, the external good health, and that we say that comes when there's a good immune system, the body is strong, we're able to have immunity to various viruses, bacteria, things that cause illness. When that immune system degenerates, often it's because of the wrong food or the wrong lifestyle. We're not doing the right things to support the immunity of the body, and so we can fall prey to disease and illness in different ways. Similarly, with the internal health this of our internal health. This is referring to the mind, and you could say that our own minds have an immune system as well. Our immune system, the immune system of the mind, comes from the practice and the development of our wisdom, intelligence, and our mindfulness, our awareness. Normally when people have problems come up, problems in life with other people, with things around them, if they don't have a good immune system, a mental immune system, internal immune system, then when problems come, they will tend to lead us to think in unwholesome ways, because of the lack of awareness, the lack of understanding and wisdom. So we have to see that it's very important to get to understand our minds, to practice Dhamma, so that we come to see and understand this mind, so that we can look after it properly. When we do study and practice with the mind, we can see that it can go to extremes. It can go to extremes of goodness. We can do very good things with our minds and take them to very refined states of happiness, and do very good things with our minds. But also they can go to the extreme, the opposite extreme. They can go in very bad ways, become very depressed, angry, suffering in different ways. So the foundation or the beginning of right view, the opposite of wrong view, right view begins with understanding the importance of the mind and how to look after it. Just as the famous Buddhist saying, how Mano Pubangama, the mind is the forerunner or the leader of everything. If we treat our minds in the right way, give them the right nourishment, the right food, then every other aspect of our life will benefit and develop in a good way, because the mind is the forerunner. If we're thinking in a correct way, using our awareness, our intelligence to train our minds to think correctly in line with truth, then that will affect everything else, won't it? Our speech, our actions, all our experience will go from that. But we must learn to give the right food, the right nourishment to our minds, and that has to be wholesome food, wholesome nourishment, and that means training our minds to use our wisdom and our awareness to understand things, and particularly to develop the strength to give up those thoughts, those moods that are harmful to us. To do that, we have to be able to train our mind, to bring our minds to be present in the moment, to have present moment awareness. Because when you have present moment awareness, your mind, as we say, is with the Paccabana Dhamma. It's not getting caught into, say, thoughts, worries about the past, concerns about the future, worries about the future. It's just with the present moment, and whatever thought, whatever feeling is arising in the present moment, we can see it very clearly when our mind is aware and mindful in the present moment. This state we call is the state of one-pointedness, where we learn to develop our awareness where there's one-pointed awareness, meaning the mind is very focused, concentrated from moment to moment, and it's able to let go of things, and particularly the harmful thoughts, the harmful moods which cause us suffering. When you can let go of these, the more you can do that, then you experience a clarity and a freshness of mind, a happiness, because there's no stress. When our minds are weak and there's not much mindfulness, not much wisdom or understanding, then we do accumulate stress, and it gets worse and worse, heavier and heavier, and so we feel ill. Literally, we feel mentally ill. So the more we can keep it in the present moment, keep our minds in the present moment, then the more we're going to feel the happiness of letting go of those kind of thoughts which cause us depression. Last year I went on a trip to the USA, and they took me to San Francisco, and the people there, they took me to visit the Golden Gate Bridge. And as we were standing on the bridge, then, every year 400 or 500 people kill themselves jumping off this bridge. I thought, that's a lot of people, because in a year there's only 365 days, so that's already more than one person a day. That's a lot of people. And it's a great shame, because all those people, really what they're doing when they jump off the bridge is they're proving that they don't understand their own minds, and they don't understand truth, that they're still caught into wrong views. They haven't taken the time, or they haven't gone to start practicing to develop a good mental health and to look after their mind. They don't know the way to do that, and so they've ended up doing that things, and it's a great shame. So if we want to find a way to bring up peace in our minds and our hearts, and to have a happiness that is really meaningful to ourselves, then we must learn how to practice, how to train ourselves. The things we need to practice we have with us already. We have a body and a mind. We don't need to get anything else. We have it all here. What we need to do is learn how to let go of things, learn how to relax our minds and not to attach to all these unwholesome ways of thinking. Not attach so much to the material world, not attach so much to the mental world, and to develop an understanding of the way things are, the way things really are. To see that the body and mind are just the body and mind, what we call khandhas. To see that these things are just natural elements in nature. The body, the physical body, are physical elements. The mental aspect of our existence, the mind, thoughts, feelings, these are mental elements. And the more we develop mindfulness wisdom, the more we will see these things as they are. See feelings as feelings, thoughts as thoughts, emotions as emotions. And that clarity brings us the understanding that these things are not really us, they're not really self. And a sense of ownership, which causes us so much suffering, then that starts to diminish. And we're able to let go of these things. With this sense of not self, seeing things as just as parts of nature rather than as a me or mine, then there's a sense that it's not ours, it's not theirs. Then if you have that, there's nothing left to argue about, fight about. There's nothing to have any conflict about, because there's no one who's really owning these things. There's nothing to feel hurt over, there's nothing to feel threatened over, because you don't own these things anyway. You can see it's not self. If we can really let go like this, then it brings the mind to peace, neutrality, and there's a sense of ease in the mind. There's no great problems or concerns in the mind. This kind of peace is a very powerful, very profound coolness and happiness, and it will go with us every place we go, not just here, but when we, whatever posture we're in, whatever place we go, that sense of ease and happiness goes with us. And all our thinking and our thoughts fall in line with the Dhamma, with truth. And whenever anything arises in our life, any problem, we can use our mindfulness, our wisdom to contemplate it and deal with it in terms of Dhamma, so that we keep our peace